On this edition of Rick Dancer TV, we're taking you to Guatemala. I know, we spare no expense at Rick Dancer Television. We have big bucks. We pay for these things. Not really. This is from 2005. The Chambers family paid. KEZI sent us with the Cascade Medical Team. For the next month, we're going to have different stories from that special that we produced, plus a whole lot more. So stay with us. Rick Dancer Television in Guatemala is coming up in just a second. I'm not dead. That sounds like something interesting. You know how you go on a trip sometimes and you see things and it changes the way you live your life? My trip to Guatemala in 2005 with the Cascade Medical Team right out of Eugene did that for me. I have never experienced poverty like that before. I've never seen people so poor, living in such poor conditions, and yet they're so happy and kind and glad to see you and welcoming and bring you into their home. It was the most amazing experience of my life. So I'm excited to get to share this with you, plus to show you local folks who give of their time and go down there and actually take care of these folks' needs. So tonight we're going to show you a couple different stories from Guatemala, in addition to a whole bunch of other stuff. And then over the coming weeks, we'll show you even more. And the last week of the month, I'm going to show you the entire special as it sits together. So enjoy.
This is a KEZI 9 News Special Edition. Mission of Mercy with Rick Dancer.
Hi, I'm Rick Dancer with KEZI 9 News. For the next half hour, we're going to take you on a journey through Guatemala. We're going with a group of 133 doctors, surgeons, dentists, and nurses and peers who truly see the world as a place without borders. Cascade Medical Team is not out to change the world, but in the process of taking care of people's basic needs, Guatemala is changing. These are the people of Guatemala.
I can tell you Guatemala is color, life, culture, and everything.
A country of 1.5 million people, and that number is rising rapidly.
I think we are a happy people. I think we love to work.
A country roughly the size of the state of Tennessee. A landscape of high mountains, jungles, big cities, but most all villages tucked away in the countryside.
Yeah, you just fall in love with them, and they're just, and they're all happy. It just blows your mind.
Many of the people still live in shack dirt floors. They wash their clothes by hand, cook on an open fire, grow their own food. They are survivors.
We had suffered a lot in our history, but we have one of the most richest cultures in the world.
30 years of war and revolution, decades putting up with corrupt governments, and the extreme poverty. All facts of life that continue to overshadow Guatemala.
In Guatemala, we need to have like something to believe and to have like hope. That's it, hope that we have a better life.
They believe in God, trust in family, and hope for their country. But the younger generation is frustrated.
The poverty, ignorance, and corruption, mainly in the government, that leads to all these cycles.
They now have a new government, a good leader.
And this one, for example, doesn't have any money, so they can't help the education, they can't help their own people.
They try through education to encourage change, and they graciously look to others for assistance.
In a perfect world, we could all experience this and we could all be able to not, and people wouldn't have to live like this.
Teams of people like the Cascade Medical Team out of Lane County understand what's going on and the importance of the littles.
You get Guatemala or you don't. and if you get it, there is no vaccine. ¿Y por qué viene a la clínica hoy?
Gail Norris understands Guatemala. She and the others just keep coming back. The best way to affect people is to take care of their most needs.
There is so much need in this country, and what little we can do to help them is just wonderful. It's God's service.
So, like soldiers, the doctors, nurses, dentists, and surgeons come and do what they're trained to do.
The people were wonderful, yeah, and resilient, tough, and so patient.
And the stove team comes to make life a little easier for the people in the villages.
But I think right now we're changing. We are looking for another opportunities, and we want to be a better country.
Guatemala is a place of great contrasts. There's something peaceful about it, and yet violence is always a threat. It's a beautiful country, but you have to really look beyond the suffering to see it. Guatemala. Once you get it, there's no turning back.
I think a big part of what we do is teach people why they're having problems and what they can do.
Physical therapy is not just for athletes. It's for anyone living with pain.
You spend some time at a computer, don't you?
Yeah. And see, if I was sitting up more.
And you'd have more problems if you sat at a computer 8-10 hours a day.
We live with pain. Neck, lower back, shoulder, hip, knee, and foot pain. Oftentimes the source of the problem can be found in patterns that we've learned.
I can teach you how to make these changes. So what I want you to do is hold your arm straight up like that, all right? And now I want you to hold that band in your hand. Now the only thing the band is...
At Stazak Physical Therapy and Wellness Center, we help you unlearn patterns by strengthening stabilizer muscles and your core and identifying the cause of the pain.
I like, when people have this realization that it's not as hard as they think. They don't have to just live with this. The light goes on for them about that it's not as hard as they think it is to get past the problems that they have.
A couple of years ago, a woman came to me and she said, "Would you shoot a video on this condition that I have called Scleroderma?" I'd never heard of it before. That video is probably the second highest hit video I have on YouTube. And I always get some of the sweetest comments from people saying, "I just found out I had this, what do I do?" And it's so nice through the magic of video to be able to link them up with not only Ann's story, but Ann's organization, the Scleroderma Angel Foundation. So take a look at this video and find out a little bit more about this disease.
In October 2007, my hands got cold. And then they started getting really painful. A few months later, they started in the middle of the night. My thumbs and this finger here on both hands would wake me up, and the pain was really bad from tingling like they were asleep. The pain was excruciating, and then gradually they started turning translucent. I'd be driving down the road and the pain would shoot down through my hands so bad I'd have to let go of the steering wheel. I don't know how I survived. It took me 1.5 years, and I had gone through 5 doctors, and the 5th one was a PA. And because my skin had gotten so tight you couldn't pinch it, my mouth had shrunk, she knew that it was scleroderma. Scleroderma is an autoimmune disease which is sometimes progressive and sometimes fatal, because what it does is it causes fibrosis, which is caused from collagen buildup. And there's 2 types of systemic scleroderma. One is limited and one is diffuse. Diffuse is the worst, That's the one I have. What scleroderma has done to me is taken my muscles away from me. It made them very, very weak. I have stage 4 kidney disease with just the one kidney. I have a hiatal hernia. My esophagus is messed up. I have an aneurysm in my heart, and I have pulmonary fibrosis on my lungs, which gives me shortness of breath. Otherwise, I can't function like a normal human being anymore. Cancer on my shoulder, cancer on my cheek, and then a couple of months later it was in my vagina. It is hell. It is hell. My life and our life, the last 5 years, has been pure hell. I have to fight for awareness because it's been a hidden disease for 260 years. Because the medical field feels that it's too difficult and confusing to go out and take care of patients, provide care for patients, because it's too difficult and confusing to diagnose. Well, where does that leave the patient? A year and a half for me to get a diagnosis, and some scleroderma patient takes 8 to 10 years. What motivates me is the people that are dying from scleroderma and they don't know how to voice their opinion. And I look at it this way, what have I got to lose? I don't have anything to lose. I have to get out there. I'm just a little person that started this foundation to get the publicity for this, because the faster you're diagnosed with this, the quicker they can treat the symptoms. You can't treat scleroderma, but you can treat the symptoms.
Dr. Fryfield.
Hey, Rick.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Good to see you.
Who's this guy?
Oh, this is my dad, Sam. Lives here in Eugene. My dad's an 18-year prostate cancer survivor.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. I'm a prostate cancer survivor too, and it's nice to know people go 18 years and longer. So tell me, I got a question for you. Can I ask you a prostate cancer?
Sure,
I hate to interrupt you, but I got to ask him a question,
Sure.
if that's okay with you. So if I'm being treated for prostate cancer, should I tell my friends and family that I'm going through the treatment?
Well, the short answer is yes. This is a difficult time in a guy's life, and he needs to enlist the support of those around him. That's why we have friends. That's why we have family. So there's a tendency sometimes, a hesitation, maybe a tendency to want to control that a little bit.
Well, I'm kind of embarrassed a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I can understand that. I really can. But ultimately, I think I always encourage guys to go ahead and just let their family know. You know, the fact is they're going to know eventually, and how are they going to feel about it if they don't hear about it for a while? So you have to pick the right time, the right place, and just talk about how you feel about things. And ultimately, every guy that I've encouraged to do that has come back and said, yeah, you were right. I feel much better now that I've told my family.
All right. So do you guys get together often?
Every week. This is a standing lunch date on Fridays, and we have a circuit around town, and yeah, that's what we do.
Well, thanks for letting me interrupt your lunch. It was nice to meet you, and thanks for being here, because it makes me feel a lot better about this.
Nobody likes to talk about what goes on in the bathroom. It's not supposed to be polite conversation, but you know what? We kind of have to talk about it if we want to protect ourselves. March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, and we recently shot a video to kind of take you through the procedure and show you what it's all about. And no, it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, but it's also not horrible, and it's a lot better than getting colon cancer. In fact, a colonoscopy is one of the only procedures where they go looking for cancer, where they can actually prevent it by taking out some of the polyps and things that actually will develop or could develop into cancer. So take a look. If you're over 50, check with your doctor, and you might want to make the appointment. It's not the worst thing ever.
Good afternoon, Rick. Good seeing you.
Hi, Dr. Wu.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
A colonoscopy is not one of the aspects of turning 50 most of us get all that excited about.
Most of the time, patients will say that the procedure itself, after this point, is a piece of cake. Okay? It's all getting ready for that with drinking that stuff and fasting. That's the hardest thing.
After fasting for 24 hours, it's time to begin the preparation.
All right, here we go.
There's a whole day you have to drink liquids, and then you have to drink some substance that will actually purge the bowels. We need all that material out of your colon for us to get a good look. So I think there's a lot of people who hesitate for that reason alone.
We're not going to show you the rest of this part. We'll catch up with you tomorrow at the clinic.
You check in, have you of course change into a gown. They'll start an IV for us to give you IV fluids and also give you sedation. And then you're taken into a special room, which is where the procedure is.
Yeah, how far in do you go?
We want to go all the way to the beginning of the colon, which is where your appendix lives. So it's about, if you will talk distance, about 5 or 6 feet, depending how you measure it.
Once the doctor administers the sedative, I didn't feel or remember a thing.
The resolution on this scope is very good. We can see polyps just 1 or 2 millimeters in size, which if you look on a ruler is pretty small. So we have to actually go from the anus, advance it sort of up the tunnel, if you will, to get to the way over here, which is what we call the cecum, or the beginning of the colon.
5 to 8% of Americans will be diagnosed with colon cancer in their lifetime. That's about 1 in 15 people.
We slowly come out, look at all the walls of the colon, if you will, look at all the all the surface area. We're looking for polyps, which are little growths of tissue. They look like warts almost. They could be potentially precancerous growths. And we look for anything that might be abnormal.
Colon cancer is one of the only cancers that the death rate is actually dropping. Colon cancer is also one of the only cancers you can prevent with this type of procedure.
Which is pretty astounding if you think about it, and pretty exciting. But people don't recognize that that's, what's the price of that sort of assurance and that process? Well, the price is drinking some stuff, going to the bathroom, being on a liquid diet, and going through a colonoscopy once every 10 years or so. That's not that big a deal.
Still, of the people who should be getting screened with a colonoscopy, only about 50% are actually doing so.
And I think part of that is the privacy issue. Like, okay, it's not in in polite company, you don't mention anything about anuses or rectums or colons or bowels or prostate or...
The experts at Eugene Gastroenterology Consultants are trying to demystify the colonoscopy with some creative, innovative, and sometimes humorous public education campaigns.
As I mentioned, sort of the puritanical view of, oh, let's not talk about that. But they didn't talk about breast cancer 50 years ago. It was a taboo topic. It's like, oh, don't ever talk about breast. That's not what you talk about in polite company. But if you look at what's changed over the years, that view has changed, and appropriately so.
The hope is the more comfortable we become talking about these issues, the more normal the colonoscopy will be. The colon conversation is slowly changing.
The biggest reason is to hopefully prevent colon cancer from forming. Or the other reason, which is obviously plan B, is to catch it earlier. Because the earlier we catch colon cancer, the more treatable it is.
To understand what's going on here when you experience firsthand the miracles that happen inside the Cascade Medical Team Hospital. These are dedicated professionals giving up their vacation time, paying them to do what they do best, take care of people's basic needs.
¿Por qué está aquí?
The lines of people form long before the gates open each morning at 8.
I'm triage. That means those are all my best friends.
Gail and Margie Groshong are the gatekeepers.
For most of them, coming to a hospital is a terrifying prospect because most people come here and die. And so some of these people have never been seen by a doctor.
It's up to them to decide who goes where and whose need is the...
¿Quién es Brian?
It's not easy.
¿Y por qué viene a la clínica hoy?
In fact, it's quite painful. For some, vitamins and worm medicine is enough this time.
If that extends her life 1 year, or if it makes her healthy enough to go to school 1 more day a week, One more week a month, one more month a year, the changes are dramatic, just dramatic.
But for 5-year-old Marvin and his family, it's much more serious. 2 years ago, he showed up blind, deaf, and unable to speak. Eugene Doctor Bill Cox restored sight to one eye. Team leader Gene Albert paid to bring Marvin and his family back for this second eye surgery.
And we had promised Marvin and his family that we'd come back to try to do the other eye. And so for me, it was unfinished business, and it was something I needed to get done.
It took Marvin, his grandparents, and his 16-month-old aunt 18 hours to get to Sololá.
And this little guy was born that way. We don't know which.
2 of those hours were hiking miles just to get to the main road. But this is Marvin's eyesight we're talking about. It's his freedom.
That was very smooth, Dwayne. Better than back home. We'll know tomorrow.
In the room across the hall, his aunt is in the care of one of the United States' top 4 plastic surgeons, Mel Spira. Cleft palates are all too common in this part of the world. Many live years with this deformity. They are outcasts. But Alberta is getting help. The Cascade Medical Team brings surgeons, nurses, dentists, and doctors to this hospital. They bring all their own equipment and supplies. For 2 weeks, they set up clinics, makeshift operating rooms, and dental labs. They check eyes, hand out glasses, do routine visits and major surgeries. Each person pays their own way. For many, it's their vacation they choose to take doing what they love best, practicing real medicine without all the red tape. It's also a chance to help the helpless, to change lives that otherwise would be lost.
They say mainly that he can't see very straight and that they're afraid if he falls down and hits this bump in his face, it might harm him or it might kill him.
9-year-old Francisco is looking for a new life. His tumor traps him. He has no freedom.
They say that they bother him quite a bit and he feels bad about it. He feels ashamed.
His grandparents made the 3-hour journey from their village to get help. They don't know how very serious their grandson's tumor really is. Without this visit, Francisco would probably have died.
We must get an x-ray of the skull before we enter surgery, because if it is anything involving the brain, he'd have to be done at a major hospital.
It's kind of a liberty for the kid to be actually alone and walk around without being supervised constantly. So it'll be the benefit for him of being more independent.
The next day, back in the recovery area, Alberta's cleft palate is still swollen, but already she looks much better.
Sorry, Marvin.
And then the moment of truth for Marvin. As the patch comes off his eyes, watch as his eyes track each other. And then, after a few moments, the first smile his grandparents have ever seen on his face.
So now he feels, I guess, a certain gratitude and also relief knowing that his child will be able to get about and, fend for himself, and that burden or worry is lessened for him.
And then the grandpa says something you hear often on this trip. To the Cascade Medical Team.
And he says that he's very grateful to God that he provided these people with the knowledge and the will and the goodwill to have been able to do this for their children.
Marvin's life will never be the same, and neither will his grandparents. In fact, his whole village is going to have a different attitude at this point. And the little boy with the tumor on his nose, well, his records will be taken to a Texas hospital, and then hopefully he can get into Guatemala City and get the operation that he needs. We'll be right back.
So I still get people walking up to me going, Rick, what are you doing now? What we do is promotion. We do media services, so we produce videos for YouTube, for internet use, for website use. We also produce videos for nonprofits, and we can help you find people to help pay for that. So we do a whole myriad of services and a lot of social media. So get in touch with us. Go to rickdancer.com or email me at rick@rickdancer.com. Heck, I'll even throw my phone number up here, but you better be calling me for business. Give me a call, let's figure out what you need, and we'll help you get there. That's really all it is. It's so easy.
What I love about this business is the people. I'm a people person, so I love to interact with people, and I love to make people feel good. So one of the ways, is obviously with food, because when people taste something that is really good, and really authentic, and have a really good service, they feel good. So that's what we're passionate about is people. We really care about people. What I will tell you, about our food is that we prepare everything from scratch. So we make sure we hire people that have the passion for making food. That's one of the ingredients. The other one, we make sure that our recipes, they use the ingredients that we tell them to use. And before we put it into the market, we make sure we test, try it, So we make our food from scratch, and people that we have as employees, they really care about how the food tastes. So they make sure that it's really good, authentic Mexican food. The only Americanized part, on these recipes are the melted cheese over, because people here like the melted cheese, And in Mexico we don't use that. But the flavor in the recipes and the ingredients, we use, all Mexican ingredients. But the only thing is Americanized is just to melt the cheese over. On some of the items like enchiladas or burritos, but like the carne asada, we use, Mexican seasoning to make sure that the flavor stays up as a Mexican dish. The golden rule is, obviously to treat others as you like to be treated. So when we start the business is the same way. You just need to treat others as you like to be treated. So we train them how to take care of the guests, how to make sure the quality of the food is coming out. Because from that, it depends everything, If you don't bring a quality food, then you're done. People love the way the food tastes. They cannot find, this kind of taste, in town. Even though it's a Mexican restaurant and the menu can be similar to so-and-so, but when they taste the food, they can tell the difference. There's something in it that they cannot tell what it is, but it's more flavorful, more, I don't know, they can really tell that it's authentic Mexican food. It's not just like any other. We put some quotes in the wall, different quotes and all this, because in Mexico, and in a little town, our grandparents and parents always use quotes to talk to us. So we just took some quotes from here, from America, so we can mix, like our tradition with the American tradition. I will ask everybody to come, and give us a chat. And I make sure that I talk to them, if they don't like it, I pay for it, I'm very confident on our food, because we eat it every day and we don't get tired.
Coming up next week, we're going to take you back to Guatemala, introduce you to a local dentist and some of the work he was doing with the kids and the people of Guatemala. Also, while we were there, we interviewed the president of the country and his wife. So we'll have that interview for you as well. Oh, we know we got sound, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm Rick, that's Will. We're here to have a great time in the sunshine. That concerns me as an American.